Hello and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, August 18th. This will transition into a TriBoard meeting starting at 7 o'clock to give us our members a night off. We're combining the two into one night. So to get us into the meeting, I'm just going to do a roll call vote. Kinsman?
Here.
Mignani?
Here.
Mitchell?
Here.
And Shear?
Here.
And Greaves here. Thank you and welcome. We have one item on our agenda, and that is to discuss and vote on the reappointments to various committees. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to look at these. Susan did get them sent out again this afternoon, so that's the most up-to-date information that we will be voting on. Does anybody have any comments or questions? And then I think we can either vote them each board individually, or we can read them off and do them as a group. I think either one would work.
So I do have some comments right here.
Okay.
And, so to get the conversation started, I think, in my opinion, we need to reevaluate the process by which we do appointments. And certainly too late to do anything today, but I think that my concern is, we speak and we talk and we obsess over civic participation and getting people involved and wanting them to join committees and all of that stuff. But when it comes to doing appointments, we kind of rubber stamp the folks that are already on boards. Now, I certainly understand the fact that people want to participate. They're on boards but in some cases they're on boards for decades, literally for decades. And, for us not to evaluate that and attempt to, I guess, if we're going to talk the talk, walk the walk, then I think we need to consider a different way of doing our appointments and going through a process. Now, what we received today was 2 pages of committee appointments, people that are already on the committees. What we didn't receive today was all of the talent bank forms of people that do want to be potentially on committees. So we have no way of kind of balancing out the folks that do want to participate, but are in essence locked out because we continue to rubber stamp appointments year after year. Now, there's got to be a better way to do this, and whether we start earlier in the process of our appointments and start that months before, or whether we consider the potential for like the cultural councils have a 2-term limit, and then you have to leave the council. I think it's really up to us to determine what our policy and procedures are for appointments. And I will tell you, I am willing to report back to the board to do some investigation, see how other towns may do this, and report back to the board, and we can have a future discussion. But I don't think it's, let me finish. I don't think it's, I don't believe that we are in essence encouraging greater participation. We're discouraging it.
And Steve, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know, since I've been sitting here as a select board member, and I'm now in my, 8th year, 9th year, we've talked different times about how to change this and how to do it. And there's not been a major appetite to potentially make some drastic changes or to say to people, thank you for your service, but we'd like to bring someone else on. So I think if that's something you'd like to look at, how other towns do it, I personally would consider looking at term limits for some of, for all of our committees. As you said, cultural council, you can only be there for a certain amount of time. It helps keep 1 or 2 people being entrenched in a certain position on a certain board. And so I would support you in, if you want to bring stuff back. I do think that for this round, it's not going to work because, we looked at it and we waited. I think we have to thank Susan for what she has been doing. We've, as a board, it's been left on Susan. She gets the talent bank forms, she forwards them on to us. And, so that's a process that I think, you're right, does need to be changed.
Well,
And maybe this is the year to do it.
well, in no way is this a reflection on Susan.
Oh, no, not at all.
This is on us.
Yep.
For making sure that if we're going to have a process, and we're going to have a fair process that really encourages more participation, then it's really on us to do that.
I agree. And it has to be a priority then for the year to see how we can make those changes. And then as we go into the next appointing season, we've looked at what we want to do well in advance of that.
Yeah.
So, Rob, you had something?
Oh, yeah. So I just had, well, just a couple. Well, I had one question, then maybe just a request to discuss a few things. But my
Sure.
first, I think, simple question is we got Danny Shea's resignation letter, but I see he's on the list.
He's no longer on the list. You should have gotten updated information today. Yeah, he was not removed. He has been now. He is not being reappointed.
Oh, that's too bad. Anyway, I'm not against reappointing him. I hope he reconsiders. But okay, so he's not on the list at the moment. The list I have, he's on. But, okay. Yeah. And my other, just before we leave this issue tonight, and again, I think Steve, that's a good idea to review how we're doing it. But I think there's two things. I think we ought to focus on the Historic Commission, at least talk about it tonight and what's going on with that, because it's been, defunct for so long. So I think we ought to focus directly on that and doing something.
So I have a plan for the Historical Commission that I was going to let you guys know about.
Great.
So Julie Nardone, as many of you know, has been actively trying to recruit people. And I believe we have a number of talent bank forms for that committee. I would like to ask, I think it's currently Steve and Joe that are representing the Select Board as the Historical Commission. You were appointed. I mean, I think we're all the Historical Commission right now, but at some point we appointed Steve and Joe. I would ask if one or both of you would be interested in staying on at our first meeting in September, between now and our first meeting in September, if we would get those talent bank forms from Susan that have been submitted, and we each take one or two people to sort of vet and talk to those people to see who would be interested, and then invite them to our Select Board meeting in September and get that filled, either at a 5-member or a 7-member. Part of me is thinking if we can get 5 new volunteers and keep Steve and Joe in place for now as a 7-member. And then within 6 months, if the people that are then on it could transition into leading it, and we wanted to look at making it a 5-member at that point. And then if Steve and Joe wanted, they could then step down at that point. But that would give us about a 6-month transition plan, because I think there's some new names who have not been on boards and committees. And this way they get support in getting it up and going and doing some work.
I think that's a great idea, Yolanda, and I think that'll work. I mean, I happen to not to believe that Select Board members should not be on the committee. I understand the need for us to be there, maybe short term, but I would prefer, that we segue, and even if it's just 5 members, they have a quorum, they can meet, they can do all their business, even if it's under a 7-member, official committee. But I think that's a good idea. Let's make it happen.
Okay.
Currently, how many talent bank forms for the Historical Commission
I don't know offhand. I have heard anywhere from 3 to 5 names bantered around. I don't know exactly what Susan has.
I know.
So if you all have thought this is a good idea, then I will work with Susan to get this implemented and get names to people, or at least give everyone the list. And then, if you know somebody, you might want to follow up with them personally. If there's brand new people that none of us know, we can decide who's going to talk to them and then get those people. And if we have 7 people, we could do that. And then we could still have 1 or 2 of you go to the meetings to help get them started. I just think that could be a nice transition. And then, like I said, within 6 months, we then have a fully fledged Historical Commission.
So do we want to make a decision?
Historical Committee.
So do we want to make a decision within the next 3 or 4 months to decide the number of members we want? Do we want to pare it down to 5? Because it is 7 at this point.
I think it will depend on how many people we get. between now and that first meeting in September. And then, if we have a good five solid members and it makes sense to make it 5, then we make it 5. If we have a good solid 7 members, then we can make it 7. I know it's been requested to make it 5, but let's, we keep saying we
Sounds
want more
reasonable.
people involved. If by chance we get 7 people who want to be involved and it makes
The only-
sense.
If I may, Madam Chair, in my thoughts, I was thinking about the fact that if you do have more than 5, and it happens to be 7, you can make at least 2 of them associate members, like the planning board or other.
We could do that as well. I think Town
committees as
Forest Town Forest Committee had associate members.
Correct.
I'm
So just a
I'm
thought.
open to that too. So I think that's
Okay.
anything we can do to encourage people and to get this
All right.
back going, I think is a great idea.
Do we need a motion for this or?
I don't think so,
No.
unless
Okay.
someone
We
feels like
have
they
your-
need to make one, but
we just need to evaluate the
the talent bank forms.
forms and
Yeah.
and move
Great.
forward.
And I would say, to respond to Joe's question about the timing, I would think we should move faster than a few months. We should have it up and running.
Well,
know,
my
as soon as we can
plan
get enough
is we review the talent bank forms that Susan already has, encourage other people if they want to participate and apply.
Yeah.
And at our first meeting in September, we have spoken to everyone who has applied, either, one-on-one, and then invite them to the first meeting in September and plan on appointing either 5 or 7, depending on what we get, members to the Historical Commission.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I wouldn't be so quick also to reduce the membership at this
Me
point.
either.
I think, there are some committees where there are 9 members. That to me seems a little excessive, but,
Yep.
7, you could have 6 members on a committee. It's nothing to prevent
Right.
having 6 members.
Right. So, okay, so everyone good with that plan for historical?
Yep.
Great.
Madam
think
Chair,
it's
my
fine.
other question was, before we get in, it's just the Tri-Mount Aggregate Committee. It's ironic that we talked about it, I think, at a couple meetings ago about how old
Yep.
it is and what's going on with it. And then in light of recent events, should we have a special discussion about that committee and their status and what's going on?
That is the oversight just for when we get the land. They have no
Yeah.
oversight for the safety and, at least not my understanding.
I guess that's
The
what I
fact
wanted
that
to talk
the
about.
fact that kids are going in there, that is not the
Yeah.
Tri-Mount Aggregate Oversight Committee's responsibility.
I thought part of what they were negotiating with, at the time it was Tri-Mount and now it's Aggregate, is the closing process. And linked to that would be, I would think, basic security and how they're going to leave the quarry and how steep it's going to be and things like that. So, I mean, I have no issues with reappointing these folks. I'd just like to know if things are active and if they're continuing to have discussions with Aggregate. So,
My understand, the last I heard was that the closing date has been pushed out. And until that closing date is made official, I mean, if it's this oversight committee, if we want them to be at managing that, but I think it's something Michael and his staff are working with, correct,
well, then
Michael?
maybe we get a recommendation from Michael about if there's any role for this committee. My recollection, and this is many years ago, they were in pretty detailed negotiations with the company about operations and how things were going to be left in dust and other operations. Maybe that's all moot at this point, but I guess I'm
I
not
don't think it's
sure
moot
about
until
that.
we own the property, so.
Um,
Steve, you had some, oh, Michael
Yeah.
and then Steve. Michael?
yeah, so I believe the closure date is 2027. There hasn't been an active committee since I've been here, so since 2013, so it's been a while. But my understanding is that, yes, that committee was designed to start talking about the closure of the site and kind of what that transition would look like. I think one of the things that happened is Tri-Mount or Aggregate, they kind of stopped using that facility for the longest time. And then they kind of rebooted and
Right.
back up. So
Yeah, they extended their stay, didn't they?
I'm sorry?
So
Steve?
they extended their stay, I
They
believe.
did.
Yeah, because I remember it being originally like 2022 or 2024 even.
So I will double check on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, did you have something else
So,
on that?
yeah, I just, in relative to, I know this is another thing that we've struggled with over the years is getting reports from committees. And, we've tried various mechanisms to have them come before the board, a staggered schedule. We were talked about doing it all in one meeting and so on. But, we might want to, and Bonnie was cleaning up some cultural council material. And this is an annual report from 1996. And Rob Shearer, you were select board member at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But this,
Sorry, I didn't get it done.
this document has reports from every committee in town. It's really very well done. And it's a written report that's submitted to an annual written report that's submitted to the town. And, that might be a good mechanism for us to, at least committees that that are off the radar, like aggregate, like, South Middlesex Opportunity Council. I mean, any number of these. I have no idea how active they are, what they do. And again, an idea, a thought about how we can get how the community, not just the select board, but how the community can get some information as to, what's going on with these committees. We talk about open space and recreation plan. How many years has it been that we have not seen, heard, or even smelled an open space and recreation plan? What's going on with it?
Well, we had the update from Open Space and Recreation back in January.
Where's the plan?
They're waiting for approval. It's unfortunately because it's a state thing as well. They're waiting for certain approvals from the state, and they did report that to us back when they came. It was the meeting that you weren't at in January or February.
Yep.
So I'm with you, Steve. We had something in place. We gave them a format for what they can do to come before us. I think we should reinstate that. Certainly committees either we appoint or we interact with, and to let people know what's going on. I'm all for that. So I'll look at, as I start planning this year, we'll, remember at one point we were having one every meeting or two every meeting. And then it was going to get scheduled where we were going to have them all like one meeting, and then COVID hit in March. And we never scheduled that meeting.
But honestly, this is a conversation we've been having for the last, almost 6 or 7 years, it seems like. But that's another, we should move on.
Yeah, we got to get our appointments done. We got 10 minutes. But okay.
So just to circle back, I'm going to do some homework about committees and appointments and that process, and I'll report back to the board some point in September. I'll let you know, Yolanda.
Let me know what agenda you'd like it on. Yeah,
Sounds
that's good. Okay, so with all of that said, do we want to, should I read them all out? Do we want to do one by one?
Now let's move it as a list.
Okay, so the current list that we are reappointing the following people with an expiration date of,
They're all different expiration dates because they're, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'll have to do that.
listed,
Okay.
yeah.
So Affordable Housing Trust, Steve Greenberg, Joe Mignani, 2 years. So 8/31/2022. Board of Register, Izzy Asenko, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Cable Advisory Board, Mark Walsh, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Community Preservation Committee, Aaron Ladd, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Conservation Commission, Gabriel Toledo and KG Narayano, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Council on Aging, Diane Hansen, Carol Love, and E. Joanne Fahey, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Keefe Tech School Committee, William Gain, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Finance Liaison, Yolanda Greaves and Joe Mignani, 1 year, 8/31/2021. Metro West Regional Transit Authority, Ed Berman, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Open Space and Recreation Committee, Amy Syed and Roberta Sulman, 3 years, 8/31/2023. South Middlesex Opportunity Council, John Ellsworth, 1 year, 8/31/2021. Stormwater Committee, Lester and Brian McGrattan, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Town Forest Committee, Brian Forrestal and Brian McGrattan, 3 years, 8/31/2023. Trimount Aggregate Oversight Committee, Gene Crouch, Don Jones, John McParland, and Mark Oram, 1 year, 8/31/2021. The ZBA, Stuart Siegel, 3 years, 8/31/2023, and 2 associate members, Robert DiBenedetto and Nathan Band, 1 year of 8/31/2021. If I can get a motion to move that list.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I got a motion from Steve and a second from Joe. We'll do a roll call vote. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. Thank you for all the people who have been willing to be reappointed. This does mean we do have a seat on the Affordable Housing Trust. I want to thank Danny Shea for his service, but he decided not to be reappointed, but I want to thank him for his service. And we do have, I believe now, we still have 2 on Trimount Aggregate. Again, that's not very active, but I think we should figure out what's going on there. And if they need to become more active, we might want to fill that. And then, of course, as we had our discussion for the historical, this is the historical committee, right? Not the historical commission.
It's the Historical Commission.
Commission. Okay. So if you are interested and you're watching this, or you watch this later and you are interested in joining the historical commission, reach out to any of us, fill out a talent bank form via the selectman's office, and we will be looking to appoint that committee, reappoint it, because there's no one on it right now, in our first meeting in September.
Yolanda, can we
Yes.
also thank Bill Moulton, who served on the Town Forest Committee for many years?
Yes.
And Ryan McGrattan's replacing.
Yes.
So thank you to Bill for his years of activity
And-
and a lot of work in the town forest.
The town forest is doing a lot. And then one last thing, as I said, I was talking to someone over the weekend and I said, a lot of our volunteers, if you see people that are participating in one committee, they're usually participating in more than one. And Brian McGrattan is a perfect example. He was just appointed to 2 committees. So thank you to Brian for stepping up and doing that. And I believe that's all we have on our agenda. I am seeing other members from Finance and School Committee come on. Is there anything else that we as a board want to discuss? Otherwise, our next just select board meeting will be on Wednesday, September 2nd. We do have the TriBoard meeting tonight. There will also be a second TriBoard meeting on August 31st, which is a Monday, where we'll be getting numbers. And then we will be voting our support. We'll be voting on the school building at our first meeting in September. I would not expect us to take a vote on that meeting at the TriBoard meeting, so that we can get the numbers, digest them, and then have a full discussion. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to let everybody know on the board that there's going to be a retirement coming up. Actually, she already put paperwork in, and that is Barbara Thorson, who's been a long time crossing guard for the town of Ashland, has put her paperwork in. It's over 50 years that she has committed service to the town in one way, shape, or form. Very active member of the Lions and stuff.
Yes.
And so at some point, and I don't know how we could do this virtual, recognition type of deal, but I would like to have some sort of presentation done with her. Maybe we can do it outside in front of the town hall, be socially, distanced.
Socially
whole nine
distanced.
yards to do this, but to do it this way on the screen just doesn't seem fitting after so many years of service to the town. So
I think
just a
that's
thought,
great
you
idea.
guys think about it and get
Yep,
back.
we'll get details, but I think that's a great idea, Joe. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
How about
No
a
problem.
coin, Joe? How about a coin?
Yes.
We could do the coin as well, absolutely.
Yep.
Yolanda, what did you say the next meeting is? I'm sorry.
September 2nd,
Oh, the usual schedule.
our regular, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we just
don't
pulled
want
in
us to
from,
lose track of this considering intervening in the Eversource thing. So I'll talk to but let's put it on the agenda. Keep
I
on it.
think we had talked about it and Michael was going to look into it for us after the last meeting.
It's just there are some time issues. That's all.
Yeah,
there are. Just to give an update, I have talked to our town council. I was hoping to get some information from the group that's kind of leading the effort in this intervention with the Columbia Gas merger, and have not received that yet, but I've been in correspondence with them, so I know it's coming.
Okay.
Hey, another quick question about that, Rob and Michael. Is there, the whole Eversource project in Sudbury, the transmission line, is there, I thought that was a potential for intervening as well, or am I mistaken about that?
I don't remember. You meaning us have a chance to intervene?
Yeah, for some reason I thought that that might be also an opportunity. I mean, that's I guess that's very much in dispute as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the window for this round has passed. If for some reason it does get denied, or Eversource, loses whatever, or I should say the town loses whatever appeals it's filed, then I think the issue is over. If for some reason it does get kicked back, or they have to start a new siting board filing again and everything, I think we would have an opportunity to jump in then.
okay. We need to wrap up our portion of the meeting. I'm not gonna close our meeting because we'll just transfer it right into the TriBoard meeting. It is basically 7 o'clock. So Paul, I believe if you're on, I don't know. I know school committee and finance committee need to call themselves to order. And then we'll pass it over to the consultants, I believe, from the Mendez School Building Project. So the select board is in session. Lori, if you want to call.
Hi, everybody. I can call the school committee meeting to order, and I'll take a roll call to see who's here. Kathy Bates.
Yes, here.
Paul Kendall.
Here.
Aaron Williams.
Here.
And I know Mark has a work meeting, so he is not likely to be here. Our agenda this evening is talking about the Mendez Building Committee schematic design review. Is everybody okay with that plan for this evening? Kathy?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Nah, let's skip it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, that's a quick meeting, Paul.
Motion to adjourn.
And FinCom, if you could call your meeting to order.
Sure. This is Scott Warnetsky. I'll do a roll call here. I think I saw most everyone, but John Moore.
Present.
Jen Cooney.
Present.
Ryan, I don't think I saw you pop in. He's not yet. Ed Hart. There he is. He's on mute. I saw him wave.
He's muted.
There we go.
There we go.
Present.
Jack, you there?
Yes.
And Ashwini, I'm not sure I saw her pop in, but we have a quorum, so we're good to go.
Great. I believe we are handing this off to you, Paul, and the consultants for the Mendez School Project to take us through tonight.
Yep. Just getting the last couple people as co-hosts here, and so what I'm doing is making everybody co-hosts so the active participants can unmute themselves, but we don't get Zoom bombed or anything like that during the presentation. So, well, thank you, everyone. This is just like our last phase. We are going to do a two TriBoard approach to this. So tonight we're focusing on the design, the overall project scope and things like that, and getting everyone comfortable with what we're doing, the different things relative to the project. I know our designer and OPMs have spent all day going through the numbers they just got back. We'll review them next week and have them available for we can send it out before once we've reviewed them with the project team more, we can send it out to the select board and finance committee so you can review them prior. We'll also have it for the public forum on the 27th, and then we'll have another TriBoard to talk about those numbers on the 31st. So everybody's good with that. I will turn it over. So Bill, and just to everybody aware, so we do have an animation as part of the presentation. It's a rendering of a flyover of the site, kind of giving you a feel for it. Zoom is not particularly great at rendering the video to all the participants. So what we'll do, Bill, just like last time, so Connor's on from WACA. I've given him the direct link to it. So at that point, we'll play it here on the Zoom, but for the ones that are streaming it through WACA feeds, Connor will play it separately so it's smooth for those viewing either on Facebook Live or wherever it's streaming or on the broadcast. So without further ado, Bill, if you want to fire up the presentation.
Sure. Just hold on one second.
And I know this isn't the first time anybody's seen him, but just in case, if any of the presenters or people that are talking, if you want to introduce yourself so that everyone knows which part of the project team you represent.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little difficulty here with my my computer. All right, I think I got this.
I'll introduce myself, Kent Kovacs with Flansburgh Architects.
Jeff D'Amico, the owner's project manager from Compass Project Management.
Eddie Marshall from Stimson Studio, Landscape Architects.
And Ramona Berlucia from Stimson Studio, Landscape Architects.
And I'm Bill Beatrice from Flansburgh Architects, and I believe I got everything running now. I apologize for that. You should all see the show on the screen now, and if we're all set, we can get going.
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, perfect. So introductions, we've already kind of done that. We'll go through the project through site planning, building organization. We do have Sarah Vaughn from Vanderwiles on the line here, so she will go through MEP systems, and we have Green Engineers from Ryan and Justin from Green Engineers to do the sustainability, and we'll go through schedule and discussions and questions. And I'll just ask Sarah and Ryan to introduce themselves when their parts come up. We have various members of the building committee here as well, and the project team. We've all pretty much introduced ourselves at this point too, so I apologize. So let's kick it off with site planning, and I'll turn this over to you, Ed, to run through.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everybody. This is Eddie Marshall from Stimson Studio, Landscape Architects, and we're really excited about what the site plan is and how it has been evolving. But we're really excited about how our landscape ties into the building. And to walk you through this diagram, obviously over on number one is the play fields, which has a good connection to the gymnasium. That number two is a reference to a service road, and you'll see that a little bit more clearly in the next plan. But the whole idea that you can swim on the back of the school, and that's where we'll be able to service the building as well. But we're more excited about this area 3, the play area, which is nicely positioned between the play field, the gym, the entry. It really becomes kind of this interesting place on the campus. Number 4 is the bus drop-off and pick-up. And what we do like is how we're separating the areas for the parents versus for the bus. There's a generosity to these spaces. So people can be either on the play field or they have to go to the bus. So people will not feel like they are on top of each other. And that ties into the entry plaza so that you have this beautiful entrance into the building. Number 6 is that parent drop-off, which I had referenced earlier. And the other thing that we like about both the bus drop-off and the parent drop-off, and this will be clear in the next plan, is the length of these spaces in terms of the ability for cars to queue up and buses to queue up. And as we move over to the east side of the site. Number 7 is a series of raised garden beds that can be used for growing vegetables, and we do like about these connections between these spaces and the academic wings. And number 8, and there's 2 8s here. One is an interior outdoor classroom, and the 8 that you see on that right-hand side is another outdoor classroom. The whole idea that these have good connections to the academic houses of the school. These are spaces that can be easily accessed from the classrooms, so they can, even if it's for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, students can get out of the classroom and out into these spaces. And what we did for that area 8 that you see on the right-hand side is that it's basically a walking oval around it. And so you have, Bill, if you can just point out kind of, we have a paved area that's then framed by a lawn. And the whole idea here is we can have smaller groups, but if there's something that needs to have more of the school involved, then everybody can spill onto the lawn. So we're trying to think about the flexibility of all these spaces and trying to think about all the different ways you can start to use these spaces for different school programming. Similarly to even for the entry plaza and even the play areas, we're very mindful about making sure that we're giving you the flexibility so you can use these spaces in a whole host of different ways. And certainly with the whole COVID thing, the whole idea of the outdoor classrooms, but there's a huge benefit in just being outside and learning, and that's what these spaces are really trying to advocate. So Bill, if you could go to the overall site plan. And so this gives you kind of really a sense of how the building is going to sit on the site. And we kind of back that up into the woodland. So you've got that north side that is framed up against the woods. And then everything else that I had talked about in the previous slide, what's great is that is all south facing. And so talk about some of the key points on this slide. That point A is all about how we can buffer from the neighbors. And so when you're on Concord Street, you'll have a great view into the building. But then as you start to drive into the site, we have an opportunity to really have that heavily planted, hold on to any trees that are there. And Bill, if you could just kind of give folks a sense of what it's going to be like to drive in and then swing around for that parent drop off. So you have that,
Parents come in.
You're going to swing in, and then you can swing up and around. And then you have that generous drop-off area. We have a parking lot we have the median strips and a bioswale inside the parking lot that can handle some of the stormwater. So we can also have it well planted, so the energy of that parking lot starts to be downplayed. And then if you move over to that area B, the community play and athletics. And as I said before, it has a really good connection back to the gymnasium. It also has a walking path along, or it can be walking or jogging around the whole field. We can incorporate both soccer, baseball, and then we have that area that is kind of a hardscape play area that we can have Foursquare or some other court game that can be incorporated into that zone as well. And so these are great spaces that even on a weekend, I could see people using kind of even the bus drop off if you were wanted to go to a soccer game. And then area C is talking about those outdoor learning opportunities. And this gives you, on the site plan, you can see that interior classroom on the building and right, yeah. And so what we did, we're trying to sneak in one tree. It's mostly a paved surface, but the whole idea brings natural light into the core of the building. It's going to be great. And another opportunity to get kids outside. And then you can see from the area that Bill was just flagging that we'll have good access to the garden beds, the outdoor classroom, and we still have the benefit of having this zone well planted. So you have that emergency service drive that I had talked about in the previous plan. Yeah, you got it, Bill. And so there's the surface, so the whole service and loading dock area will be in the back of the school, tucked up against the woodland. And then those trucks can then leave and swing out of the site. And so we can still provide good buffering from the outdoor classroom. And
Excellent.
I think that sums it up. And Bill, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Yep, thank you very much. So let's just walk through the construction phasing, and just to give everybody an orientation. The Mendez, well, you see this is the aerial image, the existing buildings, Mendez School, Concord Street along the north, and Fisk Road is on the east side of the site. The school property actually kind of overlaps Fisk Road at a certain point as well. And that becomes more apparent as we walk through the next 24 months.
Yeah, so Bill, before you go on, we've had some questions from the neighbors and in other forums around what this looks like for the surrounding neighborhood and things like that. And just to give you context where it's going to be relative to this, it's going to sit kind of right where he's circling there. So from the north and east side, we're not really impacting much on those sides from a tree line and things like that. There might be some a little bit on the east, but it's nothing. It's pretty much keeping the north and east perimeters that you see there, and it's going to sit back where his cursor is right now.
So looking at the project is a multi-phase. So looking at the first phase of construction from December 21 to June 23rd, we are basically taking over the back half of the site and constructing our new school. And what this red dashed line indicates is the construction zone, a fenced in construction zone. So all the construction activity is separate from the ongoing school activity of the Mendez School. We are proposing a temporary construction access road off Fisk Road, and that helps us, again, it's all about separation. So the construction traffic would come off Fisk Road and the school traffic would come off Concord Street like it does now. So it's just a way to separate those two streams. This fence would have a screen on it, so it's not only a physical barrier that separates the activity. There'll also be a visual barrier to limit distractions between the construction site. So phase 2 is from July 2023 to August 2023. And at that point, the new school is complete. Most of the road work and the parking is all complete. But now we're taking over the front half of the site. And again, this dashed line is the construction zone. It's a fenced in area. And we will be demoing the existing school and completing some of this road work that you see in this zone here and this zone here in order to get to the next phase, which is phase 2B. And this is basically school opening. So this is what you have open for school September 2023. So now you can see our construction zone has kind of minimized. We've completed the loop road and all the parking and all the parent and bus drop off. We've eliminated the need, or we will have abandoned this temporary access road. And for a few months here, the bus drop off, the buses will utilize the access road around the back while the contractor is finishing construction of the bus loop. Again, I'll say it again. I mean, this area is fenced in, it's screened in. The activities are separate from the ongoing school activities. And we will have measures in place to limit construction access to this area during certain times of the day so it doesn't interfere with parent and bus drop off. And then finally, the last phase 2C, and this is from September 2023 to May 2024. At this point, we're basically complete. We've completed the field work. And everything is open and available for school use. One thing to note is that the ball fields will require at least one full growing season before use. But I know that's pretty quick, but that's in a nutshell is the construction sequence. And Kent, I'll turn it over to you for building organization and floor plans.
Great. Thanks, Bill and Eddie. So I'm Kent Kovacs with Flansburgh. And what I want to do is just kind of step back to where we were. And so this is a kind of maybe 5 months ago, we were still looking at how the building gets, formulated. And these I just want to share with you in the big picture. And really, when we look at the building, there's a community wing that houses the gymnasium, the cafeteria, a lot of different community oriented spaces. The enrichment spaces that we refer to in this diagram are art, music, STEM spaces, and then the academic wings. And then looking at your site and working closely with the district to meet your educational goals, we begin to kind of break apart the building and strategically locate some pieces next to others. And you slowly see how the blocks break apart and then come back together and form, I would say, the kind of fundamental foundation for the plans. And in doing this, we also really get into the program, define what the program is with the school. And also what's important is the special education distribution. So working with the Massachusetts School Building Authority and DESC, they want to see how the plan meets your special education distribution. And so here we have provided classrooms and small group spaces and breakout spaces within each of the academic pods. And this is presented to the MSBA and DESC, and they were very happy to see that there was valuable space for the special education needs. Next slide. And again, just stepping back, probably last time we met and you saw the plans, they were not formalized, but we had some great ideas. And one of it was the community wing and how do we organize that? And this is what was submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in our last submission. So we hadn't finalized the plans, but we had some really good ideas. And so it's different ways to look at how the gym relates to the CAF and how music spaces might relate to the cafeteria or the stage. And at the end, we decided on option number 3, and that's part of the dialogue we had presenting to the community groups, the school building committee, and as well as meeting with the educational group with the Mendez. So we'd meet with various teachers and department heads and talk about the advantages, disadvantages of all these different organizations. So this really is part of a great effort and collaboration with all different groups. And that brings us to probably one of our favorite slides, because this really speaks to the educational plan of how there are 3 academic pods serving each grade. And Principal Kyra, if you want to walk us through kind of highlights you like about this model.
Yes, absolutely. So folks hear me okay, because I don't have a great reception where I am right now. I'm a
bit choppy right now, Mike.
But this is okay. Claudia, you want to take this, Claudia?
Sure, I got it. So yes, so these are our academic houses, as they're called. And as you can see, there are 3 of them, one for the 3rd grade, one for the 4th, and one for the 5th grade. And some of the really exciting aspects of this is that they are now so close as compared to what we've been living in. And they will allow for both vertical and horizontal collaboration among the teachers. So we're really excited about being able to provide that kind of collaboration. Our students are near everything. They're near the administration building, and it's just such an exciting opportunity for the community and certainly the students.
Yep. Thank you. And one thing we find really exciting about this is we've eliminated the long hallways that's currently at the Mendez. You have a really sprawling building right now, but now everybody's in a small pod. So on each level, it's only 5 classrooms, and then they all converge on this great common space. So multiple classrooms can come out, or even a grade 3, 4, and 5 can meet on the 1st floor or the 2nd floor. And they always have this great connection to nature. So even though this is kind of a diagram, a little bit abstract, it meets the vision, for the school and the educational plan. And so we're really excited to have the early conversations, and that helped formulate the plan. Next slide, please. And so here, this obviously the plan has evolved with all those conversations we had with the teachers and different departments in the school. We've finalized adjacencies and connections. We're showing doors on classrooms, and really overall organization has been set. And so if we start kind of in the middle of the plan where you see the green of the gymnasium and the yellow of the admin, that's the main entrance. And so the administration has eyes on who's coming and going. They see that great entry plaza Eddie was describing in the site plan. When you come in, there's a generous lobby, and here you can go directly to the gymnasium or the cafeteria. So you can imagine locking off the rest of the building after hours or during the summer and having some, nice control for different programs or community use without going to the, remainder of the building. But as we go deeper into the building, kind of a day in the life of the student, you are kind of greeted with the outdoor classroom, and then you go to your pods. And so we have a 3rd grade pod, a 4th grade pod, and a 5th grade pod. And again, they all are organized around a common space. And what's really exciting about these spaces is they're activated with not just classrooms, but enrichment spaces. So here you can see the art room that's right off of that common. And again, we have a proper distribution of our special education spaces. And then opposing that, we have a great music suite, 2 large music spaces that can be connected into 1 practice rooms, and they have really good access to the stage. So this project doesn't have that auditorium you had in the original Mendez, but it has a lot of those attributes, and we've tried to really celebrate those. So the next plan. So again, if we're in the center of the plan where it says media center in that purple, that brings you to, you're arrived there from a main stair in an elevator that's in the lobby below. So you arrive at the media center, a new STEM space, and again, a connection to that outdoor classroom. And the plan responds to what's happening down below. You have 3 more academic pods, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and again, organized by another common. And here, again, you have an art room and a tech integration lab, which is a really exciting space. So the kids might have some green screen filming and some editing, and they're able to work on robotics and spill out into those commons. So it's really a great change from a classroom off of a hallway where you have all these great experiences happening just as you walk by. And so as architects working on schools, we're really excited. And I feel this really speaks to the educational plan that the Mendez School Building Committee and the district put together.
So before we go too much further, if you want to just go back to the first floor, maybe you mentioned, I just missed it, Kent, just the future expansion.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We're required, the MSBA requires us to have a plan for how we would accommodate growth. And so they have a kind of outline there in the red dotted line where a 4th pod could be placed with minimal disruption to the outdoor spaces and different things there. So.
Yep, that's a great point, and we're required to do it, but we imagine if it was to happen, it'd be another one of the pods. And when we look at the detail of utilities and how we're getting electric and gas and water, we just want to make sure all utilities are out of this footprint, that it's as simple as possible to get in there and add the addition. So thanks, Paul, for bringing that up.
Paul, this is Erin. I have a question about the future expansion. Would we have the ability to reevaluate numbers or determine before we break ground whether that's necessary? And I'm just thinking in light of what happened in Hopkinton with the marathon school.
Yeah, so that would take, they had extraordinary circumstances. They had growth that, far exceeds anything we would foresee. I mean, I can't foresee us needing to do that if it's required. If we had a situation like that, then of course we would reapproach them. But it takes something extraordinary for us to, go beyond the enrollment certification that we've done.
Thank you.
And then what I like about this phase is we're not quite there with the look of the exterior, but we're trying to get a look and feel. And here we're incorporating some of the special features to your town. So we have the clock feature at the main entrance. We have the gymnasium off to the left that frames this new entry plaza. And right in front of us, we have ample light into the cafeteria, the administration that can see who's coming and going, the library up above, and then the brick academic wings off to the right. And so we're just starting to formulate what this building looks like. And then in the next phase, we'll develop it even further. Next slide. And then this would be a look from the east side from the academic kind of outdoor learning spaces that Eddie was walking us through before. But you see 2 academic wings of the 3rd and the 5th grade, and then that student common right in the center. And it's going to be a great space because this would be all green landscape that just would kind of flow and visually be connected to that outdoor classroom right in the middle of this space. So again, very early on, but we wanted to share some initial thoughts when it came to massing and some of the texture for the design of the building. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to walk us through some of the MEP systems.
Just a second, Ken. I just want to make a point as to, because you kind of mentioned brick on one and some of the forms of the building, and the whole purpose of the schematic design that we've been working on. We developed the things required to come up with, okay, how much, what is the footprint of the building? How many square foot? What are we going to need from these particular materials and things like that? So we're designing the components that influence costs, so the cost estimators can give us an accurate estimation. And because this round of estimating is what we will be finalizing our scope and budget based off of. And so while some other things have been designed, other things that fall into normal allowances or boundaries of cost that the cost estimators can do without further detail. That's why some things are designed further than others, because they would impact cost.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a great point. And so you're seeing some material there that we know is durable, that's been proven to work, and as well as the fenestrations, the openings. As part of having a very efficient building, we've taken very careful thought into balancing the amount of openings when it comes to how our sustainable engineers calculate the energy use of this building. So they're all components that kind of overlay one another. And as the chair had said, we're trying to build a budget for this, because once the budget's set at this phase, that is the budget. And we certainly will revisit kind of the look and the feel of the building in the future.
Yolanda, it looked like you were wanting to say something. Do you?
No, it's okay. It's fine. I'll wait later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt, Ken. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yep. Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Vaughn. I'm with Vanderwall Engineers. I'm the project manager. Vanderwall is doing the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection design for the building. So today I'm just going to give you an overview of where the MEP design is at as we wrap up SD. As we continue to design and design development, we'll work together with Flansburgh and the green engineer and the owner to develop these systems further. As Ken mentioned, we have a very efficient building and a goal for a low EUI. So these systems, we've worked with Flansburgh and the green engineer to try to drive the demand of the building down, and then work to design very efficient mechanical and electrical systems for the building. So to start with an overview of the HVAC system, we are using geothermal heat pumps for the primary heating and cooling for the building. So we have a modular water-to-water heat pumps, which takes the ground source water from the geothermal wells and uses that to produce hot water and chilled water. So there are approximately 50, there were 50, we've been able to reduce to 42, which is great news, and still get the same capacity. So there are approximately 42 wells, which will be the primary source for heating and cooling. And this quantity of wells was selected we took a cost-effective approach, and it's not sized for the peak cooling and peak heating, but rather it's sized for a balanced load that will occur most of the time. So most of the time we're going to be using our geothermal systems annually to do the heating and cooling. And then for the peak times, which occur much less frequently, we have supplemental systems to get to the peak heating and peak cooling. So we'll have a supplemental gas-fired boiler to get to the peak heating, and we'll have a cooling tower for supplemental heat rejection for cooling peak. All of our hydronic systems will use variable speed pumps with VFDs to allow for demand response. All the pumps will be N+1 so that if a pump is ever down for maintenance, we have a additional pump so you don't lose capacity in the system. So then this geothermal system, heat pump system, will produce hot water and chilled water, which is distributed to air handling unit coils, terminal VAV reheats, fan coil units, cabinet unit heaters, and other terminal devices throughout the building. So the main system for the building is an all-air VAV system. The air handling units are zoned by area and type of program to really maximize the way that we're able to throttle back and use systems when needed, but not require one large system to be running all the time. So that helps with our efficiency. So it's an all-air VAV system that's providing full air conditioning and heating for the building. And each classroom will have its own VAV box for its own dedicated thermal controls within the space. So there'll be a thermostat and a CO2 sensor, which will both relay information back to that classroom's individual VAV box. So that'll give each space its own temperature control. We will also have, I guess for the administration area, we are doing something a little bit different. We have a dedicated outdoor air system, which is providing minimum ventilation and minimum exhaust. And then we have coupled that with fan coil units, which provide the heating and cooling for the space. We will also have DX split systems that are serving the IT and electric rooms that have 24/7 cooling loads, and those are dedicated systems that could run anytime they are needed. So just to touch more on the geothermal system. So what we're going to do is use the stable subsurface temperatures of the ground to either draw heat from the ground in winter or reject heat to the ground in summer. So Haley and Aldrich is the geotechnical engineer, and they will be designing this system. And they basically take it outside of the building. They've designed the wells. They have put together the test well program that's installed. And then we pick it up as it goes back into the building and it hooks back into the geothermal system. So then for the electrical system, we will have a new service from the utility and an exterior pad mounted transformer with new 480 volt service to the building. We'll have an interior switchboard, and we are specifying metering and sub-metering to meet lead requirements. For backup power, we have that's good. For backup power, we have a diesel generator that's located outside on grade, and the building will be designed with provisions to either accept PV or get PV day one. And that is for, so our building will either be net zero ready or net zero on day one, depending on whether or not the PV will be installed, but the infrastructure will be there. And we will also have a networked lighting control system. For the plumbing, we'll have a new domestic hot water service, and our domestic hot water will use the geothermal system, and we'll have also a natural gas storage heater as well for the peak loads and to get to the higher temperatures needed in the kitchen area. We'll have new sanitary waste drainage, new storm drainage, and we'll bring natural gas to the MEP equipment and kitchen equipment. We will have low flow plumbing fixtures designed throughout to help in our water conservation efforts. And all these fixtures will be designed in accordance with our lead targets and working with the green engineer to meet our water conservation flow rate.
Thank you, Sarah. Ryan, if you want to walk us through our sustainable design.
Sure, thanks, Bill. I'm Ryan Montoni with the Green Engineer. We're the sustainable design consultants in the project. Throughout SD, we've been developing a detailed energy model to calculate the building's energy use intensity, or EUI, which is the total energy used by the building systems in 1 year divided by the gross square footage. Just note that the EUI that we calculated right now doesn't include the benefit of PV photovoltaics. I'll come back to that in a moment. So right now, the predicted EUI at this point is 24.5. About 99% of that is electricity end uses. The EUI has been reduced by designing the high performance envelope and non-traditional HVAC systems like the geothermal that Sarah discussed earlier in the presentation. So the EUI right now is in line with the goal of the project to be net zero ready. We'll be developing it further as the design evolves, but we don't expect the EUI to change much, given that if there are no major changes to the design or key energy systems like the envelope and HVAC. So given this, should meet or exceed the MSBA Green Schools requirement to beat the energy code baseline by 20% without the PV. Additionally, we're tracking enough lead points to at least be LEED certified, which is another component of the MSBA Green Schools program. Getting back to the PV, the EUI doesn't include the benefit of PV because it's not part of the building consuming or energy consuming systems, but renewable energy can be added to the project either now or later, either on-site or off-site, to offset the electricity used by the building in order to achieve net zero. The proposed roof and parking canopy area available for PV is enough to offset all of the predicted electricity use for the project. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so we do have an animation we want to run. So,
So hey, Connor, are you, let us know when you're ready. And there you go.
Perfect.
This is Kent from Flansburgh. I might just point out a couple things. You'll notice right in the center of the building on the one-story element, there's a green roof, and that's connected to the library so people can kind of walk out and take advantage of that learning space. We're rotating here. You see the east side of the building and that outdoor classroom. And where that wood frame is in the middle is the commons. So you see the great connection from the outdoors to the learning spaces inside. Obviously, the photovoltaic panels are highlighted on top of the building. That could be incorporated or as part of a town project. But we're rotating around the building, looking at the north side of the building, and highlighted is that service area, that full wraparound. So emergency vehicles will always have clear access 360 around the site. This is the loading dock service area and where a bulk of our mechanical equipment will be stored and housed, so you will not see it from the front of the building. Just rotating around on the west side of the building, and then we'll end up at the new ball fields. We have a softball and a little league field planned, sized accordingly, and there's that kind of walking path or jogging path, as Eddie had pointed out in the plan, that goes around the fields. Now we're coming back around the center of the school where we have this oval for the bus drop off in the center. And then directly in front of that is the play area. And so you can see the great connection from, arriving at this school and always be connected to the outdoors, which we feel is very successful here. So the gym is to the left with the play area. And the main entrance where you had seen that clock feature as part of that and that still image we presented earlier. That's it. And as the project advances, these animations and renderings will always be updated for you.
All right, so Connor, let me know when you're back on showing our feed here. He just texted me, we're good to resume.
I lost my, let me just get this thing back up again, sorry.
At the end, waiting for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So Bill's going to pull up the schedule slide, and then I'll chat a little about that.
There you go.
Thanks, Bill. So an MSBA project and a new school is a long road. The red line in front of you represents we're 2/3 of the way complete with that. Right now we are in the right before where it says submit schematic SD report with September 20th. That's the next major milestone that's in front of you. In order to get to that deadline, we're having this meeting tonight as well as many meetings over the summer with the school building committee. The critical dates that remain between now and the September submission are tonight's meeting, getting the building committee to approve the overall scope and budget of the project. As Paul alluded to, we're looking at costs next week to finalize that and submit. From there, there's a community forum scheduled next Thursday, the 27th. And after that, we're coming back in front of this group on August 31st, and then a final meeting with the building committee on September 3rd. And those next 4 meetings are really the critical milestones in order for this project to be wrapped up and then packaged up with the team to submit by September 9th. And that's a hard deadline with the state that we need to hit in order to make it within their board cycle. Their board cycle would bring them to the end of October, where the MSBA would review your total budget. They would look at the scope, the size, the program, the cost, and the schedule, and approve it at that board, which will essentially form the foundation of your funding agreement that you'll execute with them. After that board vote, you would then bring it back to your town for your town meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for November, and then the ballot vote to follow in December. And I know obviously there's nuances to work out in terms of those schedules themselves. From there, the project would then kick into the design development stage at the end of the year and would take about 1 year worth of design. So that would bring us through the full calendar year of 2021. And in October of 2021, we would then bid the entirety of the project and award for breaking ground and construction. At this point, we're pursuing with a construction manager at risk approach, which allows us to do an early trade package in the fall and really take advantage of those warmer months before you hit the heart of the winter and break ground, where the rest of the project would be bid in October and the final sub costs would all be tallied at the end of November for those players to join the team in December. We're envisioning about 1.5 years of construction to bring the new building online, as Bill alluded to in the phasing plans. And then from there, there's about another 10 months potentially from the summer of 23 to the spring of 24, where you complete abatement, demo, all the site and landscaping to wrap up the project, followed on by about 1 year worth of closeout with the MSBA in terms of your final closure of the project. At that point, you'll have received your lead approval and all the other metrics along the way to wrap up the project. And so that's it for schedule. I think we're going to turn it back over to Paul to lead the Q&A portion amongst the committees. I appreciate your time and effort in listening to the design portion of the presentation. And as alluded to, we will be back in a few short weeks with all the final costs to present to you for your approval.
Yeah, so Yolanda and Scott and Lori, I don't know whether you want to just open it up, or you want to go committee by committee. I'm happy to do whatever you all want to do.
I would suggest, Paul, that you take whatever questions come in. We're not voting on anything, so I don't think there's the need to go committee by committee, personally.
I would second that. As people have questions, Paul, let's go ahead and answer them.
All right.
Agree.
Paul, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Rob.
So yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very impressive, as I was impressed last time, and I appreciate the effort. The design, the classroom modules look like a great design, and the sustainability features, especially the geothermal, and the effort to use the site as efficiently as possible and have outdoor spaces, I think all fits in well. One thing, as a select board member, one of the things we're dealing with that started is this tree bylaw. And I actually don't know if and how it would apply to this project. I think there's a possibility we'll be looking at it at the special town meeting, the same town meeting that this will be considered. And the tree bylaw is basically, the idea is that developers who cut down a lot of trees will pay X amount because, you know, trees are good. I don't think we need to get into that. But so just having that in mind, I kind of wanted to, I don't know if you could bring up the first slide again, the general outline of the whole project.
Sure.
In my
the site plan, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the site plan's probably better.
Yeah, just the overall. Yeah, that's it.
This one.
That's the one. The other one. The
This
first one, the one you just showed. Yeah, what I wanted to talk a little bit about, I just wanted to press back a little bit on that access road going all the way behind the school. And you mentioned briefly, I think one of the consultants said it was for emergency access. So I just wanted to kind of push at that a little bit, because it looks to me like there's at least some stretch of that roadway that really isn't necessary, and that you could have this project without it. Now, I don't know if the fire department needs to be able to access every foot of the building from outside. And so I just don't know how much went into that, or if there's an alternative to having a narrower emergency access for public safety vehicles. And I'm presuming that this, I missed it, but I'm presuming, do we have fire suppression and sprinkler systems in this building?
Yep.
and fire retardant materials. So I'm just wondering, you know, if there's something we could do with that access. I know I could see that you do need a place for service deliveries. I can see that. But the rest of the roadway looks just kind of like a loop that's convenient for people to continue on and get back to the parking lot. And I'm just wondering if there's something we could do there to kind of at least save some trees and cut down on the footprint a bit. So just wondering about that.
Yeah, so Rob, they do need a continuous loop, and they do need, and I'm probably going to butcher the regs, but I think is it 150 feet access around the building. So we actually met with the chiefs, and we had a subsequent memo sent to Chief Roby around how we would access the west side of the building to ensure that, based on the entrance and back and being able to drive onto this entry plaza with a truck, that they would be able to reach everything they need in there. But if you think about it, say somebody's in the ball field, we need emergency access. It's not really feasible to be able to have to turn a emergency vehicle around, you know, on that. So I believe the loop road is required from that perspective.
Is that true? It has to be, from the overview, the animation, it looked like a pretty wide roadway. So I guess I'm just wondering if it needs to be that wide. I mean, I don't see the details, but, you know, just kind of bringing that up as a point to, I think that should be minimized myself. So
yeah, so
I don't know the detail.
Yeah, Ken, correct me if I'm right. It's 24 or 22 feet wide?
We have it currently as 24 feet, and there actually is a motorized gate on the west side to deter folks from driving around. But just when we're looking at an elementary school for this many students and this much program, it's really necessary to have flexibility and emergency vehicle access to all site amenities and the buildings from different areas. So just as a practice of first responders getting around the building, this is really a must. And the emergency vehicle road right now is 24 feet wide. We don't have sidewalks back there. It's just to provide enough space, and that could be an item that we could bring back to the police and fire department as a conversation. But most school projects in the state have the loop access road at 24 feet around the building. But we're working with Stimson, and Eddie can elaborate on this. But we're working with one of the best architects when it comes to sensitivity about how this ground plane is really impacted. And Eddie, if you want to touch upon this aspect.
Yeah, just quickly on the 24-foot width. Generally, the fire department would think about if there's ever a vehicle there, it still gives them room to swing a safety equipment kind of around that vehicle and still get to the problem area. Rob, you bring up a good point, because this is an area we really looked at kind of what is the grading going to be, what's the how can we have less of an impact on the mature woodland that's on the whole north side of the site, which is something that we've been working really closely with Bill and Kent on from day one. And we do know that if we can get that road tied in and have it, so the grading of the road really will respond to what is going on with the building and the loading dock, obviously. But then we can have those shoulders graded, so over time those shoulders start to heal back in, and you have that stronger connection from the building looking out into the woodland, and hopefully the scale of that fire lane starts to get mitigated over time as trees start to kind of grow up to the edge of it, and even a lot of grasses and shrubs will kind of take over quickly. But in terms of how we kind of get that to work, we actually did a lot of studies trying to making sure that we have a building that was kind of satisfying everyone's needs in terms of kind of the site placement and avoiding the building that's there on site, and then working to hold on to as much of that mature woodland as we could. And even you can see in the plan right where we have that note, the forest trail, if you're at the softball field and it just went north, we're trying to hold on to kind of that knoll of trees as well. So on day one, it really feels like we're trying, there are some of those older trees that are still there on site. I know a project like this will have a very big impact on the site, but the more trees we can save, the better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that response.
Paul, I have a question, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, with respect to this. I was looking at the site, and I want to thank all the folks that gave the presentation. It was very, very detailed and very informative, and I greatly appreciate that. Joe Mignani, by the way, on the select board. Maybe to answer one of Rob's concerns with respect to that road going around the emergency access road. God forbid there was ever a situation where they'd have an escape plan. The children aren't going to go in the wooded area. They're going to have an area that's going to be accessible for them to meet and regroup. And what better place but to have that roadway further away from the building to have access available for them to meet and make accountable of all the students per classroom that'll be out of that building, especially on the back side. The front side, they can work out front, but I'm looking at the back area. And again, I'm sorry, my police safety hat is on again. And I'm looking at that and I said, well, this would be ideal for an escape plan and a location where they can meet up and regroup with classrooms from each grade. The other concern the question that I have is I love the idea of having the fields out front. Reminds me of Millis High School years ago. That's what they did. They had their fields in front of the school buildings. Will there be any possibility of irrigating those fields, seeing that they're right adjacent to one another, and maybe put the irrigation smack in the middle so you can water both sides of the field? Because I know that's one of our concerns over the years. We put a lot of money into our fields, but yet we don't properly maintain them. And within 3 or 4 years, they burn out or they're not suitable for use. And is that something you folks have thought about, putting an irrigation system in for those fields to maintain them for years to come?
We haven't gotten into the details of that, but the other thing that we tend to also look at is what will really make these fields more durable is the soil type and the grass type. Mm-hmm. So certainly on a summer like this, where it has been dry, and even the rain that we had the last couple of days, we're still in a rain deficit, if you will. I think it's a combination of things that make those fields more playable. And it does work around both the water, the soils, and the grass type. In our next phases, we'll start to look at where we would have the site irrigation. But what we would like to do is simply focus it on really some of the essential areas and having most of the site unirrigated. We'll need some temporary irrigation for a lot of the trees and shrubs in the first 2 years, but we will be selecting native plants that even in a summer like this, they will be fine once established.
And if I could just add, we have to be very sensitive to our lead points because we want to achieve our lead for 2% reimbursement. But this question did come up about irrigation in the past, and it would not hinder you from achieving that lead point. And so part of the exercise when we go out to the estimators, we're going to price out what it would be to irrigate, but we don't have that as a number currently in our base. But we're certainly going to ask our estimators what that may be for the 2 fields. But to Eddie's point, where it's like the school green and the lawn and those other areas, if we irrigate those areas, it could jeopardize our lead points, but they do exempt the play fields. Is that correct, Ryan?
That's correct, Bill.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
to answer your question, we are looking into it.
Okay, thank you. And I do have one last question. There is a historical location in the back of the current building. And it's
represented right to that front corner where you see the square. You're talking about the grave?
Correct.
We're preserving it's right there where he's highlighting.
Thank you. I didn't realize what that was. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're keeping some costs, just we don't know what the design is around that grave, but we have some, plantings and some decorative fencing and things like that right now built in. Again, it's something we'll work with, the community with.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe, but I knew where you're going with that.
No, I appreciate that, Paul. I didn't realize what that was. Now I do. And one last thing, that's the grade of that, the emergency service road. I know it's kind of hilly up in that back area. This is where I grew up. So this is where we used to play Army and Cowboys and Indians. So, but what is the grade on that area for that service road? The pitch to that is it going to be steep, or is it
Joe, we have done a rough grading plan. I think we're trying to keep it under 10%, but without the plan in front of me, I don't want to kind of speak out of turn, but we have looked at the entire grading of that. And if you looked at on the plan where it does say surface road on the back, we know that we have to incorporate a retaining wall to hold some of that grade back, because you're right, it does get steep. And so areas that where we want to have kind of that road cut in, we will have a wall there to hold up the grade. But most often we are trying to use just a natural grade to tie back into the grade that's there on site. But that corner where the loading dock is going to be is part of the next challenge for the next phase of the project, when we look at the grade change that we have to do in order to make that loading dock functional. But I think we are trying to keep that less than 10%, or around the 10% neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Which becomes a manageable surface for everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just on the grading, and I think we've touched on it before, relative to the orientation of the building and where the classroom and academic areas are and the community wing. We also oriented this way, not only because it's better because the community fields and the community wing are associated, but it allows us to take that west side of the building and kind of inset it into the hill. So requiring less retaining walls. So those walls back there, which would have the kitchen and part of the CAF, are going to be partly buried into that back hill. So the service entrance back there for loading dock will be, a higher grade than the entry plaza.
Thank you, Paul. Great presentation. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything, any thoughts or
Yeah,
questions?
Paul, two questions. So one kind of follows on Joe's safety question is, are we wiring the building for cameras from the outset?
Yeah, so we've spoken with the chiefs regarding that. We've got total outside coverage. We have common area coverage and things like that. So we've had two project meetings, and that's the project team. So that's design team, OPM, just Jim, myself, and the chiefs. We met actually two specific times dedicated to that, and they have both reviewed and are happy with everything we're doing regarding the public safety components.
Okay, and then I know low flow water fixtures were discussed earlier. Are there bubblers going in? If there are, have we considered, given COVID, like not doing bubblers and instead doing the like water bottle filler stations?
I mean, I'll let Kent go into that, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive either, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now, just as a cost carrying measure, we have the bottle fillers, distributed throughout the plan. So we haven't gone to that level. with the COVID. But right now we're just building that budget, so we have them distributed throughout the academic wings, the gym, the CAF, and outside the library. But just your standard water fillers, bottle fillers right now.
And not bubblers.
I think we'll have bubblers as well, right, Ken?
Yes, Sarah, do you want to jump in there? What you typically specify?
Well, there
Usually a
are
combination.
options. There's a
Usually-
combination, like bubbler, water fountain, bottle filler, that we often see in schools. But if the water fountain that, you know, students could end up putting their mouth on is a concern, we could do strictly like bottle fillers. So I think it hasn't been decided yet. We're carrying the more expensive option in SD for now, but I think we'll get into that after. But there's both. There's option for combination or just bottle fillers.
Yeah, and I think we would, Taryn, I think we'd always have the bottle fillers. I think we would still want the bubblers, but in situations where we wouldn't, like if we were in this particular situation again at some point, we would just, you know, disallow that use or be able to cover them up or something like that, and allow for only the bottle fillers. But I think we would want to make sure that a kid that's thirsty, doesn't have a bottle, can get the water they need well in situations that aren't like we're in right now.
Yep. No, that is exactly my thought, is like, okay, there are the like 3-in-1 or the 2-in-1 combo, but then if you're shutting part of it off, does it still work for the bottles? But if we have two separate, and I'm glad to hear that you're carrying the cost for the more expensive option. So that's great. Thank you. Oh, I guess, sorry, one other question. Has AYBS been notified that they're going to lose fields for essentially 3 years?
Well, seeing as though, you know, one of the members of that is on our committee, they're very aware, I think.
Okay.
I had one quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I think this is for Sarah. It has to do with ventilation. Once again, it's along the lines of SARS-CoV-2. A lot of virologists suggest that this won't be the last virulent virus we see in the coming decades, and this building will hopefully will be around for many decades. Now would be a good time to think about proper ventilation techniques and air purification. I understand the airlines have done a long ways towards making flying safer by having the air flow from the floor to the ceiling, and then it's treated before it's returned to the cabin. Is that something that you folks are thinking about when it comes to air circulation, air purification?
So right now we are not doing kind of like the displacement air method where it's coming in at the floor and being cleared out at the ceiling. In a space like this, there's a pretty decent space premium for dropping ducts down to like low supply diffusers. But instead what we're doing to provide adequate ventilation is, so one, the windows in the classrooms in the building are operable. So there will always be the option to open the windows to provide additional ventilation. Also, all of our new air handling unit systems will be, they'll be designed to meet ASHRAE requirements for minimum ventilation rates, which are much higher than when the school was originally designed. So we'll be bringing in lots of fresh air. That fresh air is filtered at the air handling unit, and the air handling units do have capabilities to go to 100% outdoor air. The coils themselves, because there are times in the year, in the fall, in the spring, when the weather is great and we want to just bring in 100% outdoor air. The coils will have some limitations on, you know, how much air we can heat and cool, but there will be a range where the school can throttle up the ventilation rates as needed. And there will be we'll have MERV 7 pre-filters and MERV 13 final filters that will filter all the air that as it leaves the air handling unit before it goes into the room.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts?
I have a question, Paul. I'm just wondering about the, you know, the look of the building from the outside. When we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on that? Like, how does that work? And is that's farther down the road, or?
Yeah, so I mean, so you can weigh in anytime. Feedback is always welcome.
Well, will we see a better schematic, more detailed of how you're envisioning the final
not
look?
before September. So the form of the building in general is going to look the same. What's going to happen through the design development, and Kent, you can keep me honest here, is those detailing, right? So if you recall, this is our second animation. The first animation I showed my wife, who was an architect, and she's like, the first thing she said, oh, that the top edge detail needs to work or whatever, you know. And so I said, this isn't about that right now, right? So the design development that we go into next is all about getting more of those details down to where whether we went design, bid, build, or construction manager at risk, we would have complete designs, that detailing. So we'll start that in earnest in design development in getting more renderings and different things for people to provide feedback. But Kent, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say just the process, you know, working with the school building committee and what we've shown in the past groups is really, you know, how do we have a really efficient building, you know, working with the sustainability consultants, a building that responds to the educational goals, you know, and how can it expand in the future and work with your site? And so really we've sculpted the building with the various groups over the last probably 8 months. And I think the result is really powerful. And I think it works well on a lot of different fronts. And, you know, it is kind of a flat roof building. It's majority 2 stories, but that can accommodate, you know, your future photovoltaic panels. It is southern facing, like Eddie, you know, spoke about how we're able to capture great light in those courtyards. So it's really the environment and the program that sculpted it on the site. And now as we go into the next, even the window openings were many conversations with the school building committee. How do we balance and get below what most schools have? So we have an efficient envelope, and we got below, Ryan, if you're on the line, I think we got to what, 23% glazing?
I believe it's 23, Justin, if you could confirm that.
So, which helps with all that energy modeling to get to that low AUI. So, you know, working with the envelope was very important. And even to Paul's point about the west side of the building nestling in that hill, that helps with our thermal envelope. And in the future, it's going to help break down the scale of like that large gymnasium. So there's a lot of great like aesthetic components and massing components that fit well with the school. And we're just starting to fold in like the material. And to Paul's point, that's why we've chosen some materials that we see on these school projects that are, you know, very attractive, that are not overindulgent. We're going to begin to work with our estimate and the massing and give you options for that. But the look and the feel and the massing isn't necessarily going to change, or where the glass is, because we've kind of honed in already. But the scale and the feature, and I think we talked about this at the last school building committee, we have a lot of brick on this job because, you know, we're architects, we like brick, we think it's a great material. And I think the comment was, well, what color is the brick? And I said, I don't know, we'll figure it out together. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. You know, we have all the bones here. And then, you know, through September and October, I think we're going to have more conversations, and we'll start presenting more, you know, renderings and elevations to give you a clearer view. But we want feedback like all the time, you know, and I think adding the clock feature was a nice component to kind of soften it up and make it more relatable. So to answer your question, it's all in steps, and we don't want to rush it too much either. But we certainly like feedback, and we'll keep you updated, you know, as we keep going.
No, I think it looks great overall. I was just wondering those fine details of like how much brick, how much, I don't know, I think you said there might be wood paneling or stuff like that. So
yeah, so that's kind of what we're balancing out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess one of my points, Kathy, is
yes, yeah,
there's no bad time for feedback, and it doesn't need.
Yeah. No, and I was just looking almost like the icing on the cake. How's it gonna? What's the final? What are you envisioning as the final look? And was there still room if, you know, if you didn't like the wood and the brick or the whatever the combination?
All those materials and stuff like that. What we've done so far is tried to capture, hey, we're going to use 70% brick and 10% this material to give us, you know, ranges for the cost estimators, so our budget's true. And then working within that budget, if we said, hey, you know what, we don't want to use this material at all, and we want to use more of this material in these couple locations for within budget, we can do those things.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
And that went with exterior and interior finishes as well. So there was interior plans where we kind of went through and said, okay, we're going to have display cases in these locations, just to get rough numbers of how many linear feet of this type of wainscoting or whatever the case is in all the different places. And then during design development, all that stuff is tweaked. Any other questions, thoughts?
Paul, I had a quick question about the access road, the temporary road off of Fisk.
Yep.
I wanted to, I was curious, at what point is that going to be disabled? Is it after the main building is completed, or the
Yes.
parking lot as well?
So Bill, can you go to the phasing?
Yeah, Bill, go to the phasing plan. So while construction is being built, it'll be the construction access.
Okay.
But then the summer, when we turn over the building right there in that plan, you'll see that it's actually the teacher use that'll be using that for the summer months while we build those double drive lines that come to the new building. That's a critical summer slammer. It's going to be a very tight schedule for us to demo and abate that corner of the building and finish all the roadways. So we need every day we can get in that 2-month cycle between when school gets out in June and when the teachers come back at the end of August. So they'll be using that temporary road at that point. But once school comes back into session, we would then take it offline at that point.
Okay, all right, thanks. And then one other question I had about outdoor lighting. I didn't see, maybe I missed it, but is there anything that's, going back to the safety issue, has that already been sort of accounted for? Is it mainly in the parking lot and around the school? I'm just curious about the lighting plan.
Yeah, we have reviewed a lighting plan. Ken, if you want to speak a little bit more to it, but it did incorporate the areas you mentioned.
Yeah, we're required to meet coverage in the parking lots and the roadways, and then we'll have pedestrian lights, around the main entry plazas and other areas. So again, it's a number that we are carrying in the estimate, and then we'll develop it further in the next phase. But we are considering there'll be building lighting, there'll be site pedestrian lighting where you're walking, and then there'll obviously be parking lot lights. And then we'll have to present a lighting plan to during a site plan review package to the town for review as well. And that's part of our lead. There's a lead, so we have the right cutoff, so they'll want to see that as well. So there's a lot of eyes on that to make sure we get it right.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I love the presentation was great. I loved the outdoor classrooms. I think that's going to be a huge addition to the school. And as a parent that's done drop off and pick up at the Mendez school, I think that the new flow will be greatly appreciated by all the parents. So thank you.
And the administrators, trust me, Claudia is drooling over that that separated drop off for each, and being able to have capacity on site and not have to do jumping jacks every morning. Any other questions or thoughts? I don't see anybody from the community on either. So
no.
So Yolanda, you had started to chime in earlier. Did you still have anything you wanted to add, or?
It was about the access road when Rob answered that, and I think it's been pretty well answered, but I think, he was saying that he felt it might be too big and we had to worry about, losing trees. But I know based on all of our conversations, it's an emergency access, as well as there's not enough parking spots. So with the number of students, if at some point it may need to be used for parking if there's a large event, and it's also then the road that for deliveries will come to the back of the school. So it needs to be big enough for delivery trucks to come in and make deliveries to the back of the school. So
Yeah.
It's not
and-
just one road. It has a lot of purposes.
Well, I would I'm just talking at that yellow arrow part, which to me seems wider than it needs to be and has a really limited use except to be convenience. But, it's up to us to balance one interest against another. I understand it's a complex issue, but I just think that can be as narrow as possible. I'm not even sure, and just has as little impact as possible. It shouldn't be needed for deliveries, our regular use, actually. It's for emergency access is my
Well, no,
opinion.
if you look at the back of the school, Rob, all the delivery for the kitchen and things like that is
Yeah.
at the back of the school.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
Okay.
about the section to the right that is just a connection to the parking lot from what I can see. That's all. I'm just pointing these, I appreciate you folks trying to minimize the impact. I'm just suggesting you take another look at that and, just try to balance. It's not an easy thing, but try to balance the different interests.
Yep.
If I was a fire chief, I'd want a big wide road there too, but, balance that against other needs. So,
Yeah, and no, I definitely appreciate that, Rob. But just to clarify, where you see the arrow there, there's no trees there currently. That's the edge of the current field.
Yeah, and I appreciated the response. We talked about the grading and the revegetation. Yeah.
We've always been talking about that, so absolutely. We're going to try to preserve as much as we can, and we're going to try to replicate as much as we can, and not just not just small little things, but where there's places to put things that will become mature trees in many years. That's what we want to be able to do as well. We're with you on that. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to give some more information to the group around that loop road. So on that west corner, there will be a motorized gate there. So during the school day, that will be something that can be operated from the administration suite. It's also something that can be activated by the police and fire to gain access, so that there's no activity through there, but off hours when those fields and things will be utilized as well, that can be raised. And so that part of the reason for the 24 foot, particularly around that area, is, people have mentioned parking. Basically, if we don't do the 24 feet, people are going to park there anyway. And then we would have issues like we've had in the past around Warren at some of the events when we've had emergency vehicle issues. So making it 24 feet allows for us to put parking on, parallel parking on one side of it, and leaving the rest open for those emergency vehicles to still be able to pass correctly. If there's an opportunity in that northern part to say, hey, we don't need 24 feet there, we may be able to do that. My concern is, people do something stupid and all of a sudden, we're having an issue getting somebody the treatment they need or getting them off to the hospital. And so I wouldn't want to sacrifice that either. So, but just to give you some more context around what we're doing around that road and some of those things. So it will be gated and controlled either by the administration suite or via potentially like the radios from the police and fire.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Sure. I also, there's been, at our last community forum, there was some information or concerns around the timing of this. And also there was a comment, and I think we addressed it at the time, but I want to make sure we talk about this project and we're all really excited about it and it looks great. And there was a comment made that, do we really need the Cadillac? And I want to make sure that we impress that we're excited and this is great, but it's not extravagant. Most of the things we're doing to make it great are design, not cost-driven things, right? So the layout of the school and the thoughtfulness going into it is what gets everyone excited about it and all those things. And so it's a great project. But it's not a great project because we threw everything at it in the kitchen sink relative to cost. It's because of the thoughtfulness that the design's been gone through from the beginning, and that I can't stress enough how important it was for that educational plan and the accolades that we got from the MSBA surrounding that educational plan. That's really been driving this whole thing. And the fact that the design team's been doing a really good job listening and interacting with the educators, and the educational plan was so thoughtful, has really led to what we see right now, and just what I think is just a solid plan that's going to look great and actually look like we did throw everything at it from a cost perspective. But the things we've done aren't the things that are costing, aren't things that are money based. It's really just the thoughtfulness of the design and the effort put in by the educators and the design team. So I think that's all we had for the presentation. And if there's no other questions, like I said, the plan is we will have, we're currently working on those estimates, and we will get those out to the groups as soon as we can, as soon as those have been coalesced and discussed. And then we have the community forum on the 27th. We'll present those cost estimates to the community at that time. And then we have our TriBoard meeting on the 31st, where we can again discuss those the overall budget and scope of the project.
Okay. So thank you, Paul, for leading us through this. I appreciate it. So that gives at least a few more opportunities for the public to look at things, and of course to reach out to any member either on either of these three committees or the school building committee to answer questions. And then once we have finances and a budget for this building, I know Michael Herbert will be working to create some graphics in regards to how that will be tied into other capital and excluded debt and things like that. Unfortunately, if you are not aware, I think Michael might actually be there. There has been a minor explosion at the Kitty building on Main Street. There are no injuries, and there is some concrete, and they are waiting for a hazmat team. So, so just that if you were not aware, that is going on as we're having this meeting. And I texted with Michael at one point because I said, if by chance you have to cut power to a certain part of town, could be a few of us impacted. So fortunately, they have not had to do that from what I can tell. So yeah, so the public forum on the 27th, we'll look at numbers there. And then the 31st, we'll all meet again here to do that. And then I know the select board, we have planned to do a final actual vote on the project at our first meeting on September 2nd, rather than do it as part of the TriBoard for that round. I think because it's a budget and we might be looking at the numbers on the 27th, I want to make sure our members have a good opportunity to ask their questions and discuss that, and that we can look at impact to the community.
Okay. Just let me know what parts of the project team you want to have available for that meeting.
Okay.
If you need that. So.
Yep. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank everybody that did the presentation tonight. You did a fantastic job. And you got my support, that's for sure, without a doubt. Great job. Thank you.
And just I know it came up during the thing, but we did just get back from both our geotech design and the green engineer, our latest numbers. And so that's where the well field was reduced to 42 from the estimate of 50 and that's based on the test well, or I'll call it the first well, I guess, that was put in at Mendez. And so that's why that was done, so they could actually run some tests on it to see how it performed, and based on that, they were comfortable with a number of 42. and the
Excuse
green
me, Paul, is that a
engineer.
cost impact or
What's that?
does that have a cost impact?
Reducing it does have a cost impact. We're going with, I think it's a 600-foot quad loop well as opposed to a 500-foot single loop. But I think there's a cost savings there as far as what that'll, what that'll be. That's, that'll be kind of the numbers that are coming out. We hope to stay pretty much on budget to what we've been tracking recently. So, but we'll see where those end and where that ends up. But also the green engineer, the modeling that they had done the first time, I'll give them kudos. They were modeling to, hey, we think we're going to have a building about this size on the site. Can you give us a number of what our EUI was going to be? But this time we were able to give them a lot more detail on, hey, it's this site, it's orientated here. Here's the, here's the where we're going to have the glass and all those things. And so that EUI number actually dropped, and so we may be eligible for a newer program from EverSource because of that. So.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we can all adjourn. It's been a long day. Adjourn our meetings. If I can get a motion to adjourn the select board.
So moved.
Adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shear,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. The select board is adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
and good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
All right, school committee, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I'll second.
Aaron moved, Kathy second, and all in favor, Kathy?
Aye.
Aaron? Aye. Paul?
Aye.
Aye. School committee is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks,
for this.
everybody. Thanks for a great presentation.
Appreciate all you're doing. Thank you.
And last but not least, certainly the finance committee, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
John, second Jen. Roll call, John,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Ed. You're
You're
on.
mute.
There you go. Jack.
Aye.
And Scott, aye. Finance committee is adjourned. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.